Welcome back to Crime Story with Camila. Today we talk about the chilling story of the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case, a web of deceit and tragedy. For more videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. Lori Vallow's life seemed picture-perfect to those on the outside. A charismatic and doting mother, Lori had 3 children: Colby Ryan, her eldest, Tylee Ryan, her teenage daughter, and Joshua J.J. Vallow, her youngest son, who was diagnosed with autism. But behind the smiling family portraits was a life filled with turmoil and complicated relationships. Lori was no stranger to reinvention. By the time she met Charles Vallow, her 4th husband, Lori had already been through 3 marriages, each leaving its mark on her life. Charles Vallow, a successful and deeply religious man, fell in love with Lori's charm and beauty. Their marriage in 2006 seemed like a new beginning for both, blending their families into one. But over time, cracks began to form in their seemingly perfect union. By 2018, Charles began noticing alarming changes in Lori's behavior. She had become obsessed with doomsday prophecies and apocalyptic teachings, which she discovered through a small yet fervent religious community. At the center of this community was a man who would forever alter the trajectory of Lori's life: Chad Daybell. Chad Daybell was a self-proclaimed visionary and author from Rexburg, Idaho. He wrote a series of novels that blended religious doctrine with end-times predictions. His books amassed a modest following, but Chad was more than just an author. He claimed to have a direct line to God. Chad taught about light and dark spirits, identifying people as being either of light, a force for good, or of dark, a force for evil. According to Chad, the dark spirits were zombies, whose souls were replaced by demonic entities, and he believed it was his divine mission to purge them. In 2018, Lori attended a religious conference where she met Chad Daybell. For Lori, it was love at first sight. Chad, too, seemed captivated, telling Lori that they had been married in multiple past lives and were destined to fulfill a grand purpose together. From that moment, Lori became one of Chad's most devoted followers. She embraced his teachings wholeheartedly, believing that she had a divine role in preparing the world for an imminent apocalypse. Charles Vallow, once deeply in love with Lori, found himself living in fear of the woman he had married. Over the years, Lori's behavior had shifted from doting wife and mother to someone consumed by apocalyptic ideologies. In January 2019, Charles reached out to law enforcement with a chilling warning. He claimed Lori believed she was of God, tasked with preparing for the second coming of Christ. According to Charles, Lori had told him she no longer needed to eat or sleep, and that he had become a dark spirit who needed to be destroyed. Charles shared details of Lori's increasingly erratic actions, including draining their joint bank accounts and threatening his life. In one email to his lawyer, Charles wrote, "I fear for my safety and the safety of my kids. Lori is not the same person I married."
Gilbert Police Department, this is Dee.
Hey, my name is Charles Vallow. I've got an order to hold my wife. You can look it up, Lori Vallow. And go ahead.
Yep. We spoke to you earlier about her.
Right, she was at the Gilbert PD saying I stole her purse. I'm going to go over there, and the officer said he won't hold her because he doesn't have an active order. Can you get that to him like immediately? I'm going there right now.
Okay, just one moment, sir.
Thank you.
Is she in the lobby right now?
That's correct. Blonde hair.
Okay. And how far away are you?
I'm about 10 minutes away.
Do you want officers with her?
Your Civic Center Drive? Your Civic Center Drive?
Yes. 75 East
Yeah.
Civic Center Drive. And do you want officers to go down there with her?
She's supposed to be retained for bridges. I got an order last night. She's lost her marbles.
Okay, we'll get in contact with our front office or our lobby.
Okay, but I don't want to go there if she's going to not be.
Yeah, I'm going to call him right now.
Can you call me back and let me know?
I can have an officer contact you. What's your number?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
January 31st, 2019, 13 hours, 14 minutes, 40 seconds. January 31st, 2019, 13 hours, 20 minutes, 53 seconds.
Gilbert Police, this is Mandy. Can I help you?
Yeah, this is Charles Vallow. I just called a moment ago. My wife said to give the police department saying I stole her car. find her all day. She needs serious help.
What's your name?
My name is Charles Vallow.
And your wife's name?
Lori Vallow. She's
Okay.
making a complaint against me at the police department right there. You're on
Okay.
Civic Center Drive, right?
Yep.
Just between, I'm going to come up to Lindsay and where to?
Lindsay, you're on Lindsay now, you said?
Yeah,
Lindsay and what?
Lindsay and Riggs.
Lindsay and Riggs. You're going to go way north to Lindsay and Warner.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And then Warner, you're going to hang a left, go up to, easiest way is to go up to Gilbert, then go back down south to Civic Center. We're just south of Gilbert and Civic Center, or Gilbert and Warner.
Okay. Did you know if they were going to give her, do the whole for her for bridges?
Did you just call in, Charles?
I did, yeah.
Okay. So it looks like we have all the notes in here. Yeah, they haven't called you. It's only been a couple of minutes. It's been less than 10 minutes.
Let's say that they will call me back.
Yes, they will be calling you back.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And is your wife, Lori, is she still here that you know of?
Yes, she said she's waiting for me to bring a purse.
Okay, I gotcha. Yep, they're get an officer assigned here just as soon as they can. An officer will be contacting you, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Despite his pleas for help, law enforcement treated his concerns as a domestic dispute rather than a matter of life and death. Charles was left feeling powerless. Lori's charm often disarmed authorities. In a police interview after Charles attempted to file a restraining order, Lori dismissed his fears as ridiculous, claiming Charles was overreacting to her spiritual beliefs. On July 11, 2019, tragedy struck. Charles Vallow arrived at Lori's home in Chandler, Arizona, to pick up JJ. But what unfolded was a scene straight out of a nightmare. Lori's brother, Alex Cox, called 911, claiming he had shot Charles in self-defense. He alleged that Charles had attacked Lori and him with a baseball bat, leaving him no choice but to fire his gun.
911, where is your emergency?
Hi, I need an ambulance to... Yes.
Why do you need an ambulance?
I have a older male, a middle-aged male.
He is breathing?
Yes, he's breathing, but very, very highly breathing.
Okay, let me transfer you to the medics. Do not hang up.
Okay.
Is this due to a
Fire
drug
and medical, what is
anything?
the address of your emergency?
Gilbert with it.
Caller, are you on the line? Hello, is there
Hello?
anyone there?
Yes, this is it. I'm here.
Okay, you're at for...
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, what is the emergency?
I have a older male here named Alex. He just passed out here on my bathroom.
Okay, is he awake
Are you
right
breathing?
now?
I think he's passed out.
Okay, you think he's unconscious?
Yes.
Okay. Is he breathing normally, like you can see his chest rising and falling? Hello?
I hope so.
I have the paramedics on the way, but I need you to try to help me with some information while they're driving there to help him. Okay?
Okay.
How old is he?
He seems to be in his 40s.
Okay. Do you know him?
No, it's my mother's boyfriend.
Okay. And how old are you?
I'm 25.
Okay. I have the paramedics on the way, so he's in the restroom right now.
Okay.
Gilbert, can we get you started?
I'm already en route.
All right, thank you. Okay, is he on his back or on his stomach? Where is he at?
He's on his side.
Okay. Can you lay him flat on his back on the ground?
I'll try. It's just there's feces there, and I'm trying to just keep cool right now.
You said he's what?
There's feces on the ground.
Okay. I know that's gross, but if we can just go ahead and get him flat on his back, I want to make sure he's
Right.
breathing, because if he's not, we're going to do a few things.
Gotcha.
Did you say he's cool, like cold?
Alex. Alex. Alex, you gotta get you on your back.
Does he seem more awake or more asleep?
He's more passed out.
Okay, is he opening his eyes or moving at all?
He's breathing.
Okay, is he breathing normally, like his chest is rising and falling? He's not making any weird sounds?
Yeah, he's making a very exhale sound like...
Okay, if he's doing that, we need to start CPR, so I need you to get him flat on his back on the ground.
Okay, I'll do that.
Let me know when he's flat on his back, and we're going to give you instructions, okay?
Okay.
What is your first name? Okay.
I don't think I could do that, man.
I know this is difficult, but you're only helping him, okay? I know, the paramedics...
I don't think I could
what
do
is
that.
your
I have
name?
anxiety and depression.
Okay, what's your name?
Anxiety and depression, I can't.
What is your name?
My name's Joseph.
Joseph? Okay, Joseph. The best thing for us to do for him right now is to... So if you'll just take... I know it's not ideal, but you're doing a really good job by helping him if you can do that, okay?
Alex. Alex. He's not breathing. No. No, he's too big.
Okay, just try to get him on his back so we can do chest compression.
My mother just got here.
Okay, give her the phone then.
So, did she say the mother just got there?
Yeah.
Come here. Come here.
And we're coming on Mineral right now.
Really
we're
bad.
almost there.
It's really bad. Come upstairs, in the bathroom. We need to get him on his back.
Can you put your mom on the phone?
She's right here. You're on speaker.
Okay, ma'am, the paramedics are pulling up, but in the meantime, we need him to get flat on his back, and we need to give him chest compressions, okay?
Chest compression. Wait. But...
Does she know how to do CPR?
Yes. She knows how.
Okay.
How far are you?
We're pulling up out front right now, so they're grabbing their equipment and they're coming in. Are you on the first floor or the second?
We're on the second floor.
Second floor in the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay, and the door is unlocked?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, do you see the paramedics now?
Yes.
Okay, Joseph, you did a good job. I know that was really scary, but thank you for your help, okay?
Joseph,
Okay,
before you hang up, Joseph, before you hang up, I need your last name.
Okay.
Joseph. Let the paramedics do their business and tell me what your last name is.
Lopez.
Joseph, what's your last name?
Lopez.
Okay. And what's your date of birth, Joseph? Alex's last name.
I don't know.
You don't know his name?
No.
Okay. All right. Do you let the officer in?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm going to let you go. Bye-bye.
Charles was found dead on the floor with 2 gunshot wounds to the chest. Alex appeared calm and cooperative with law enforcement, but inconsistencies in his story raised eyebrows. For instance, Alex claimed to have performed CPR, but his hands were clean, showing no evidence of life-saving attempts. What shocked investigators and the public was Lori's reaction. Hours after Charles's death, she threw a pool party at her home, laughing and acting as though nothing had happened. To Lori, Charles's death appeared to be a stepping stone to her greater purpose. Within weeks, Lori moved to Rexburg, Idaho, to be closer to Chad Daybell. Charles's death was ruled self-defense at the time, and no charges were filed against Lori or Alex. But as investigators would later discover, this was just the beginning of a far more sinister plot. After Charles Vallow's death, Lori Vallow's life took a sharp turn. She relocated with her children to Rexburg, Idaho, where she would cross paths with a man who would forever change the course of her life, Chad Daybell. Rexburg, a small, seemingly peaceful town, was home to Chad Daybell, a man who had made a name for himself as a self-published author of apocalyptic novels. But beyond his books, Chad held beliefs that went far beyond fiction. Chad's writings detailed his visions of the world's destruction, filled with prophecies about the end of days and the battle between light and dark spirits. He claimed that he was a modern-day prophet, chosen to guide people through the apocalypse. But for Lori, Chad's teachings were more than just words. They were a lifeline. In late 2018, Lori Vallow's life took a pivotal turn at a religious conference where she met Chad Daybell. For both, it was more than just a simple encounter. It was a meeting that would set into motion a series of devastating events. Chad Daybell, a former gravedigger turned self-published author, had spent years writing books about the end times. His apocalyptic visions and theories were the foundation of his growing following. For Lori, meeting Chad felt like destiny. She had been searching for answers, and Chad offered her the certainty she craved. Chad's books centered around his belief that the world was nearing its end, and that only a select few would be spared from destruction. He presented himself as a prophet, a modern-day messenger with direct revelations from God. For Lori, his teachings offered not just spiritual guidance, but an explanation for the chaos she was experiencing in her life. The connection between Lori and Chad was instantaneous. They soon began discussing more than just religion. Chad introduced Lori to his beliefs about the translated beings, individuals who had transcended the mortal world and were destined to lead the righteous. Lori felt that she, too, was one of these chosen beings. In their private conversations, Lori shared her intense spiritual experiences, including her belief that she was the key to preparing the world for the coming apocalypse. Chad, in turn, validated her feelings, reinforcing her belief that she had been selected for a divine mission. As their relationship grew, so did their shared beliefs. Lori felt that her marriage to Charles Vallow was a burden, holding her back from fulfilling her destiny. Meanwhile, Chad, who had been married to Tammy Daybell for over 20 years, began to see Lori as the woman he was destined to be with, a spiritual partner who could help him fulfill his mission. In private, they spoke of their deep love for each other, describing how their souls had been connected in past lives. Both believed they were divinely chosen to lead others through the coming tribulations. They saw themselves as part of an elite group that would reign during the millennial reign, a period of peace and prosperity after the world's destruction. As Lori's obsession with Chad grew, so did the strain in her marriage to Charles Vallow. By the end of 2018, Lori was increasingly distant, absorbed in her relationship with Chad and her belief that Charles was standing in the way of her divine purpose. Charles became alarmed as Lori's beliefs grew more extreme. He feared for his family's safety and began to take steps to protect himself. Lori's apocalyptic visions became more intense, and she began to refer to Charles as a dark spirit, someone who had been assigned to stop her from fulfilling her mission. Despite the tensions in her marriage, Lori's bond with Chad only deepened. The two continued to exchange spiritual messages, and soon, Lori began making plans to be with Chad permanently. Chad spoke of an eternal partnership, hinting that their union was divinely orchestrated. Lori, feeling empowered by their connection, saw it as confirmation that she was meant to leave Charles and embrace her true calling with Chad at her side. By the spring of 2019, Lori's behavior had drastically changed. She had already cut ties with several friends and family members who questioned her relationship with Chad. Her departure from Charles was just the beginning of the dramatic shifts in her life. Lori's spiritual journey was no longer just about belief. It had become a mission to fulfill the prophecy she and Chad had crafted together. Her actions would soon spiral into a deadly path, one that would lead to the tragic events surrounding the disappearance of her children and the murders that would forever alter their lives. As Lori's relationship with Chad grew stronger, so did her obsession with the beliefs he instilled in her. What started as a spiritual awakening quickly morphed into a dangerous obsession, one that would lead her down a dark, irreversible path. Lori had already started distancing herself from the people who once mattered most, her family, her friends, and even her children. She was consumed by her conviction that she was on a divine mission, part of a larger spiritual plan to guide humanity through the coming apocalypse. Her faith in Chad's teachings became her sole focus. Chad's apocalyptic beliefs were no longer just words to her. They had become a blueprint for her life. He taught her that she was part of the 144,000 chosen to enter the New Jerusalem, a group of individuals who would survive the tribulations and reign during the millennium. But to Lori, the stakes were higher than just survival. She believed her mission was to lead the righteous through the apocalypse and prepare the world for the second coming of Christ. As Lori became more immersed in these beliefs, she started to view herself as something more than just a mother or a wife. She saw herself as a translated being, a spiritual entity with a unique and powerful role in the unfolding of humanity's fate. This new identity disconnected her from reality and distorted her understanding of right and wrong. Her children, Tylee and JJ, began to fade into the background of Lori's life. Tylee, a bright, independent teenager, and JJ, a sweet, special needs child, were caught in the turmoil of Lori's obsession. Lori's interactions with them became increasingly cold as her focus shifted solely to her spiritual mission with Chad. One of the most chilling aspects of Lori's deepening obsession was her belief in zombies, people who were, according to Chad's teachings, inhabited by dark spirits. Lori began to see people around her as either righteous or zombies, and in her mind, the latter were expendable. Lori's distorted view of reality meant that her loved ones were no longer people she cared for. They were either a threat to her divine purpose or part of her mission. She began seeing her own family members as potential obstacles. Her children, especially Tylee and JJ, were now seen through a different lens, one that made them disposable. Chad's influence over Lori was undeniable. He reinforced her delusions, validating her belief that she was chosen for a special, apocalyptic role. Their relationship went beyond the physical. It was built on the idea that they were both spiritual beings in a sacred, cosmic mission. Together, they would usher in a new era, but only if they rid themselves of the distractions of the mortal world. Through late-night texts and spiritual phone calls, Chad and Lori cultivated an unbreakable bond, feeding off each other's beliefs. Lori began to follow Chad's instructions blindly, trusting that he had been chosen to lead them through the end times. As Lori became more entrenched in her beliefs, she grew increasingly isolated from her family. She began to view their concern for her as a threat to her divine path. Her sister, Summer Shiflett, attempted to intervene, but Lori's obsessive devotion to Chad and the apocalyptic vision they shared pushed her further away. Lori's obsession had clouded her judgment. In her mind, she was part of a greater purpose, and any interference was nothing more than a distraction from her mission. Charles Vallow, Lori's husband, became increasingly alarmed as Lori's behavior grew more erratic. He had witnessed firsthand the chilling transformation that had taken place. Lori's growing obsession with Chad and her beliefs had driven a wedge between them, and Charles realized that his marriage was no longer sustainable. Charles tried to reason with Lori, pleading with her to seek help, but she was already too far gone. She dismissed his concerns, and their relationship disintegrated. Charles filed for divorce in February 2019, unable to reconcile with a woman who was no longer the person he had married. As her marriage crumbled, Lori's new purpose became clearer. She was the chosen one, the one destined to lead others through the coming apocalypse. She believed that her children were simply part of the path she needed to walk, but the world she was preparing for was one in which they no longer had a place. By the fall of 2019, Lori Vallow's obsession with Chad Daybell had reached a dangerous climax. Her children, Tylee and JJ, had become ghosts in her life. their presence fading as her focus shifted entirely toward her apocalyptic mission with Chad. Tylee Ryan, a vibrant 17-year-old, and JJ Vallow, a 7-year-old with special needs, were caught in a whirlwind of chaos that would soon see their lives taken from them. As Lori and Chad's relationship deepened, the children were increasingly kept in the background, their well-being pushed aside in favor of the couple's increasingly twisted beliefs. JJ, who had always been the center of his father's world, was now living in a home with no emotional connection to his mother. While Charles Vallow fought to maintain a relationship with his son, Lori's involvement with Chad had caused her to abandon her responsibilities as a mother. As Lori's focus shifted entirely to her relationship with Chad, JJ's care became an afterthought. The family that once supported him was now fragmented, and JJ was left without the guidance and love that every child deserves. The last time Tylee Ryan was seen by anyone outside of the family was on September 8, 2019. Lori, Chad, and the children took a trip to Yellowstone National Park, a trip that would become forever associated with Tylee's disappearance. Despite this being her final known public appearance, there are no photos of Tylee from this trip after that day. When questioned later, Lori explained that she had dropped Tylee off at a friend's house, but no one could confirm this claim. The fact that Tylee's trail had gone cold was only the beginning of the horror that would follow. Meanwhile, JJ had been living with Lori's friend, Melanie Gibb, and her husband, David, after Charles Vallow's death. Melanie recalled that JJ was joyful, but there were unsettling signs of tension. The child had started to notice that his mother was becoming increasingly distant, and his calls to her were often ignored or dismissed. On September 23, 2019, just 2 weeks after Tylee's disappearance, JJ was last seen by anyone who cared for him. Melanie Gibb, who had become close to Lori and Chad, spoke to the police later, saying that JJ had seemed confused and unsettled about his living situation. She also mentioned that Lori had stopped answering her phone. Lori's behavior during this time was alarmingly calm. When Melanie Gibb later asked about JJ's whereabouts, Lori simply explained that he was staying with a relative. She never seemed distressed, never seemed worried. Instead, Lori continued to focus on her relationship with Chad and the coming events that would soon change everything. Family members began to notice the unsettling absence of Tylee and JJ. Lori's sister, Summer Shiflett, who had once been close to Lori, started asking questions. But Lori's responses were increasingly vague, and her once innocent excuses began to wear thin. Summer grew concerned, but she had no idea that the horror unfolding was far greater than she could imagine. By November 2019, the authorities began to take action. After months of unanswered questions, law enforcement received reports of missing children. The FBI, local authorities, and detectives began investigating, but their attempts to question Lori were met with deflection and evasion. Lori and Chad, however, remained eerily calm throughout the investigation. Despite the mounting pressure, Lori maintained her calm. She told the authorities that she had no idea where her children were, and her claim that they were with family members or friends made it difficult for investigators to discern the truth. But cracks in Lori's story began to appear. As investigators continued to press, the evidence mounted. Security footage showed Lori and Chad leaving the area around the time Tylee and JJ vanished. Cell phone records and witness statements began to expose a disturbing pattern. Lori and Chad's alibis were inconsistent, and their story was unraveling. As investigators continued to press, the evidence mounted. Security footage showed Lori and Chad leaving the area around the time Tylee and JJ vanished. Cell phone records and witness statements began to expose a disturbing pattern. Lori and Chad's alibis were inconsistent, and their story was unraveling. The community became aware of the growing investigation. As the search for Tylee and JJ intensified, the public began to ask questions. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit, but the truth was still obscured by lies and manipulation. The disappearance of Tylee and JJ was only the beginning of a shocking revelation. What had begun as a mother's spiritual obsession would soon turn into a full-blown criminal investigation, leading to a discovery that would rock the world. The investigation into the disappearances of Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow had now become the focus of national attention. As law enforcement worked tirelessly to uncover the truth, the mystery surrounding the children's fates grew deeper, revealing a web of lies, deception, and increasingly disturbing details about Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. As investigators delved deeper into the case, Lori Vallow's behavior became increasingly suspicious. What should have been a mother's frantic search for her missing children quickly turned into a chilling display of detachment. When questioned by authorities, Lori's responses were vague, and she seemed far more concerned with her own narrative than with the welfare of her children. Each time law enforcement pressed her for answers, Lori gave only cryptic statements, never offering any new information about the children's whereabouts. When asked about the last time she had seen Tylee and JJ, she would claim they were fine, but her eyes revealed a deeper coldness. As time passed, investigators grew more and more suspicious of her story. Lori's actions in the days following her children's disappearance seemed out of place. While most parents would have been consumed with worry and desperately pleading for help, Lori was seen walking around in public, going about her business with an eerie calmness. She appeared more focused on her own activities than on the search for her children. To the outside world, Lori appeared cold and calculating. When the media began asking questions, her responses were dismissive, and she gave no indication that she was genuinely worried about Tylee and JJ's whereabouts. Her demeanor contrasted sharply with the growing sense of urgency among the community and law enforcement. Each visit to Lori's home left more unanswered questions. Police found no signs of struggle, no obvious leads, but her lack of emotional reaction stood out. It was as if she were acting out a script, playing a role, rather than someone desperately trying to find her missing children. Discrepancies in her story began to surface. Lori told different versions of events, often contradicting herself. She claimed to have spoken to her children over the phone, but when investigators tried to confirm the details, there were no records to support her statements. Her refusal to fully cooperate, combined with the mounting inconsistencies, pointed to one undeniable fact. Lori knew more than she was letting on. Law enforcement officers knew something was wrong. They could feel the weight of the lies hanging in the air, but they needed hard evidence to move forward. Lori's evasive behavior was more than just suspicious. It was a deliberate attempt to keep the truth hidden. While the search for Tylee and JJ grew more urgent, Lori remained cold, distant, and seemingly indifferent to the growing media attention. She was a woman on the run, but not in the way anyone expected. Her priority wasn't finding her children. It was protecting herself and the lies she had created. As investigators began to piece together the puzzle, Lori's evasive behavior would only become more telling. Her refusal to engage with the investigation was the final clue, one that would ultimately lead to the unraveling of a case that would shock the world. With Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow officially declared missing, the search for answers consumed law enforcement and the nation. Investigators worked tirelessly to uncover the truth, but Lori Vallow's silence and evasiveness turned an already challenging case into a desperate race against time. Initially, the investigation centered around reconstructing a timeline. Detectives gathered witness statements, combed through phone records, and tried to trace the children's last known whereabouts. The most recent confirmed sighting of Tylee was on September 8, 2019, during a trip to Yellowstone National Park, while JJ was last seen on September 23, 2019. The photo from Yellowstone was haunting. It marked the last time anyone outside of Lori's immediate circle would see Tylee alive. After that day, she seemed to vanish without a trace. As investigators expanded their search, witnesses began coming forward. Friends and family recounted strange conversations with Lori, where she dismissed concerns about her children or offered cryptic reassurances. Text messages revealed Lori insisting that Tylee and JJ were safe, though she refused to say where they were. Surveillance footage from Lori's apartment complex provided critical clues. JJ was seen playing outside on September 23rd, but after that, he was never spotted again. Investigators were left wondering, where did he go, and what had happened to Tylee weeks earlier? Digital evidence painted a partial picture. Lori's phone showed little activity related to her children, while Chad Daybell's property became a focal point of interest. Despite their efforts, a clear answer to the children's whereabouts remained elusive. As investigators continued their search, Lori and Chad relocated to Hawaii, abandoning their home in Idaho and avoiding mounting questions. Their move further complicated the investigation, and their carefree demeanor only added to the growing suspicion. The image of Lori walking the beaches of Kauai, carefree and deflecting questions about her missing children, sent shockwaves across the nation. Her detachment from the gravity of the situation left investigators and the public increasingly alarmed. After months of relentless investigation, June 9th, 2020, marked a turning point in the search for Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. Acting on a search warrant, investigators arrived at Chad Daybell's property to conduct a meticulous search of his backyard, an area that had raised suspicions early in the case. The search was painstaking. Armed with cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar, investigators focused on areas that seemed disturbed, patches of earth that didn't match the surrounding terrain. Each dig brought the team closer to the horrifying truth. Hours into the search, investigators made a gruesome discovery. Buried in shallow graves were the remains of Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. The children whose innocent faces had captivated the nation had been concealed in a place meant to hide unspeakable acts. Tylee's remains were found near a fire pit, severely burned and dismembered, an effort to destroy evidence. JJ's body, wrapped in plastic and bound with duct tape, was discovered buried nearby. The contrast between their vibrant lives and the horrifying state in which they were found was almost too much to bear. The discovery sent shockwaves across the nation. Parents, families, and communities came together to mourn the loss of two innocent lives. Candlelight vigils lit up the night, each flame a symbol of the light Tylee and JJ brought into the world. For the officers and detectives who worked the case, the discovery was deeply personal. They had spent months piecing together the puzzle, hoping against hope that the children might still be alive. What they found instead was a devastating confirmation of their worst fears. While the world reeled from the tragic discovery, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell remained emotionless. Chad was arrested on the spot, charged with concealing evidence. Lori, already in custody on earlier charges, faced mounting accusations that linked her to the horrific deaths of her own children. The grim discovery marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Tylee and JJ had been silenced, but their story would not be forgotten. Their tragic end became a rallying cry for justice, a call to ensure that those responsible for their deaths would be held accountable. The truth had finally come to light, but the weight of it was unbearable. Tylee and JJ's story would serve as a reminder of the darkness that can hide behind even the most familiar faces, and the strength of a community determined to seek justice. Both Lori and Chad faced a litany of charges. Prosecutors alleged that the couple meticulously planned the murders, motivated by financial gain, religious extremism, and their twisted belief system. Evidence included text messages, financial transactions, and witness testimonies that painted a chilling picture of premeditation. The prosecution's case against Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell was meticulously constructed, revealing a disturbing web of lies, manipulation, and calculated cruelty. Prosecutors argued that Lori and Chad's shared apocalyptic beliefs were not just fringe ideas. They were the foundation of a deadly conspiracy. Central to the prosecution's argument was the couple's warped religious ideology. Chad's self-published books and teachings painted a picture of a man consumed by apocalyptic fantasies. Lori, deeply influenced by Chad, began to see her children, Tylee and JJ, as obstacles to their spiritual mission. According to their beliefs, the children were dark spirits who needed to be eradicated. Messages between Lori and Chad provided chilling insight into their mindset. They dehumanized Tylee and JJ, describing them as zombies possessed by evil. This belief became their justification for the unthinkable. The prosecution also exposed the financial motivations behind the murders. Lori continued to collect Tylee's and JJ's social security benefits even after their deaths, amounting to thousands of dollars. Investigators also revealed that Chad had taken out a substantial life insurance policy on his late wife, Tammy Daybell, shortly before her suspicious death. The timeline of events was damning. In the months leading up to the murders, Lori and Chad left a trail of lies and suspicious behavior. Charles Vallow, Lori's estranged husband, had warned authorities of her increasingly erratic and dangerous beliefs before his death. Shortly after Charles was killed, Tylee and JJ vanished. Weeks later, Chad's wife Tammy died under mysterious circumstances. Perhaps the most damning evidence came from the search of Chad Daybell's property. Investigators found Tylee's dismembered and burned remains near a fire pit. JJ's body, wrapped in duct tape and plastic, was discovered buried in a shallow grave nearby. Forensic experts testified about the horrific methods used to conceal the children's bodies. The prosecution also relied on powerful witness testimonies. Friends and family described Lori and Chad's growing obsession with their apocalyptic beliefs. One witness recounted a chilling conversation with Lori, in which she claimed that JJ had become a zombie and she was at peace with his fate. In their closing arguments, prosecutors emphasized the human cost of Lori and Chad's actions. They reminded the jury that this case wasn't about religious beliefs or financial schemes. It was about two innocent children whose lives were brutally taken by those who were supposed to protect them. This case is about justice for Tylee and JJ, the prosecutor declared. They deserved love, safety, and a future. Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell took that away, and they must be held accountable. Facing overwhelming evidence, the defense teams for Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell sought to shift blame, cast doubt, and paint their clients in a more sympathetic light. Their strategies centered on psychological manipulation, religious influence, and a lack of direct evidence linking Chad to the children's deaths. Lori's defense team argued that she was a devoted mother who had been manipulated by Chad Daybell's domineering influence. They claimed Lori's descent into religious extremism was fueled by Chad's teachings and that she was not in her right mind when the crimes occurred. A key element of Lori's defense was her mental health. A psychologist testified that Lori exhibited signs of delusional thinking and dissociation, conditions that made her vulnerable to Chad's apocalyptic ideology. The defense portrayed her as a victim of psychological manipulation rather than a cold-blooded killer. Chad Daybell's defense strategy revolved around denying his direct involvement in the murders and distancing him from Lori's actions. His attorneys argued that Chad had no prior knowledge of the crimes and was misled by Lori about the children's whereabouts. Chad's lawyers emphasized the lack of physical evidence tying him directly to the killings, pointing out that while the remains were found on his property, there was no forensic proof that Chad had been involved in their burial. The defense also sought to undermine the prosecution's evidence, questioning the reliability of forensic methods and suggesting that the timeline of events presented by investigators was incomplete or speculative. Lori's defense team argued that the text messages between Lori and Chad, while unsettling, were ambiguous and did not constitute a confession or clear evidence of a conspiracy to commit murder. Chad's attorneys attempted to downplay his apocalyptic beliefs, portraying them as eccentric but ultimately harmless. They argued that Chad's writings were works of fiction rather than blueprints for murder, and that Lori had misinterpreted his teachings. Lori's attorneys, meanwhile, pointed fingers at Chad, implying that he had orchestrated the entire scheme and manipulated Lori into compliance. They painted her as a loyal follower who had been led astray by a charismatic and controlling partner. In an effort to humanize their clients, both defense teams presented evidence of Lori and Chad's prior lives as loving parents and community members. They argued that their drastic shift in behavior was the result of external influences and not an inherent capacity for evil. In their closing arguments, the defense teams implored the jury to look beyond the sensational headlines and consider the complexities of their clients' mental states and beliefs. They asked for leniency, claiming that Lori and Chad were victims of circumstance and not masterminds of a sinister plot. Despite their efforts, the defense struggled to overcome the mountain of evidence presented by the prosecution. As the trial drew to a close, it became clear that the jury faced an enormous decision, one that would determine the fate of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. Key witness testimonies played a pivotal role in unraveling the twisted narrative of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. Friends, family members, and investigators provided chilling accounts of their behavior, beliefs, and the events leading up to the tragic deaths of Tylee and JJ. Charles Vallow, Lori's estranged husband, had sounded the alarm long before his death. In a harrowing email to law enforcement, Charles expressed concerns about Lori's mental state, her dangerous beliefs, and her obsession with Chad Daybell. Charles was terrified. His sister testified. He told me Lori was talking about zombies and the end of the world. He said she believed our family was being taken over by dark spirits. One of the most significant witnesses was Melanie Gibb, Lori's close friend and confidant. Melanie had been deeply involved in Lori and Chad's religious circle, but became a key informant when she realized the extent of their plans. Witness testimony. Lori told me that JJ had become a zombie and that it was a matter of time before his spirit left this world, Melanie testified. At first, I thought she was speaking metaphorically, but then I realized she truly believed it. Melanie also revealed a chilling phone call with Chad and Lori after JJ's disappearance. In the call, Chad casually stated that JJ was safe and happy, a statement that was later proven to be a lie. Tammy Daybell's family provided heartbreaking testimony about her sudden and suspicious death. Her sister described Tammy as a healthy, vibrant woman with no history of health issues. Tammy was in the best shape of her life, her sister testified. The idea that she died of natural causes never made sense to us. And Chad's behavior after her death, marrying Lori just weeks later, was a slap in the face. Law enforcement officials also delivered damning testimony. One detective described the harrowing moment they uncovered the remains of Tylee and JJ on Chad's property. "We found JJ's body wrapped in duct tape and plastic," the detective testified, his voice heavy with emotion. Tylee's remains were burned and dismembered. It was clear they had gone to great lengths to conceal the crime. Lori's surviving son, Colby Ryan, delivered one of the most emotional testimonies. He spoke about the mother he once knew and the stranger she had become. "She was my mom, my protector," Colby said through tears. "But when she met Chad, everything changed. She became someone I didn't recognize, someone who believed her children were disposable." Each testimony added weight to the prosecution's case, painting a picture of a couple consumed by delusion and greed. For the jury, the witnesses' words brought the victim's suffering into sharp focus, making it impossible to ignore the human cost of Lori and Chad's actions. After months of gripping testimony, emotional appeals, and unrelenting scrutiny, the moment of reckoning arrived for Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver the sentences for crimes that had shocked the nation. The judge began by acknowledging the profound loss suffered by the families of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, as well as Tammy Daybell. With measured words, the judge described the case as one of the most disturbing and senseless acts of violence they had ever encountered. Judge's statement: "You were entrusted with the lives of these children and instead subjected them to unimaginable harm. Your actions have not only destroyed lives, but also shattered the trust that comes with being a parent and partner." Lori Vallow's sentence. Visual. Lori Vallow stands as the judge delivers her sentence. Her expression remains stoic, though her attorney places a comforting hand on her shoulder. Voiceover. Lori Vallow was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for her role in the murders of Tylee and JJ. The court emphasized her betrayal of the fundamental responsibilities of motherhood, as well as her lack of remorse. Judge's statement. "Your belief system, no matter how distorted, does not excuse your actions. You took the lives of 2 innocent children who relied on you for protection. For that, you will face the full weight of the law." Visual. Tylee and JJ's family members react, some crying, others nodding in quiet relief. Chad Daybell's sentence. Visual. Chad Daybell stands as the judge prepares to sentence him. His demeanor is calm, though his wife's family glares at him from the gallery. Voiceover. Chad Daybell was also sentenced to life in prison without parole, receiving additional years for the murder of his wife, Tammy Daybell. The court highlighted his role as the mastermind behind the apocalyptic beliefs that drove the horrific acts. Judge's statement: "You manipulated those around you, exploiting their vulnerabilities to serve your own twisted agenda. You showed no regard for the sanctity of human life, and for that, justice demands your removal from society." In powerful victim impact statements, family members spoke of the heartbreak and trauma they had endured. They remembered Tylee and JJ as vibrant, loving children whose lives were stolen too soon, and Tammy as a kind and devoted mother. Tylee and JJ's grandfather. We will never get to see Tylee graduate or watch JJ grow up. But today, we have justice, and that is what matters. Tammy Daybell's sister. Tammy trusted Chad with her life, and he betrayed her in the worst possible way. We can only hope she can now rest in peace, knowing the truth has come to light. The sentencing marked the end of a long and painful journey for the victims' families, but it also left lingering questions about how such a tragedy could unfold. The case has since spurred discussions about mental health, religious extremism, and the importance of recognizing warning signs. Though Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell will spend the rest of their lives behind bars, the memories of their victims will live on, reminding the world of the importance of vigilance and the enduring strength of love in the face of unimaginable loss.
Thanks for watching. For more interesting videos, please subscribe.